Yes.
Edity.
Edity bits.
Check the backgrounds.
Oh, man. So, after an hour, this episode may not get released. We don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens. Maybe...
Episode of what, Eric?
Oh, this is our
zeroth
episode of Our Haunted Backyard.
Our Haunted Backyard, the show where we talk about country road cryptids, small town spooky, and other local legends.
Yes.
I wrote that myself.
I was actually going to say that should totally be like the intro, like you just saying like the hometown haunts, small town spooks.
Oh, I like hometown haunts.
Yeah.
That's a good one too.
Ah.
Hi, I'm Ian.
Hi, I'm Eric.
We've spent like the last hour or so pretending we know how to set up audio things.
I was so embarrassed and like frustrated at myself because I'm like, oh, I went to school for this. It's gonna be like riding a bike getting back into this program. Mm-hmm. It was not like that.
That's okay. We're now recording off a single USB mic, and it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to probably sound pretty at all. Right now, it sound pretty to me, but I have low standards.
That's okay. It's like grunge rock podcasting.
Yeah, it's very grunge
podcasting. So
yes,
we gave a brief introduction about what the podcast was through my beautiful alliterative tagline.
It was great.
But we should actually probably maybe explain what we're actually going to be talking about in general, not just in this particular episode, but in the show as a whole. What's our oeuvre?
The show as a whole. Now, if I say it wrong or if I say it differently, feel free to be like, oh, what? Be like, it was this. But but this show is you and me. We're both like spooky, cryptid, monster, ghost horror fans.
My gender is Mothman.
Yeah, exactly. Before this recording, he gave me an extra Mothman patch, and I'm super excited
because I had 2 identical Mothman patches.
So that's already pre-qualifies both of us to be able to talk about this stuff.
But yeah, so we're spooky, crypty boys. Mm-hmm. Who like to talk about monsters. Yeah,
and there's so many podcasts that, of course, talk about this subject already. Mm-hmm. Subject already.
We need to do our vocal exercises
before this. How now, brown cow? The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Shouldn't have. Have you seen his credit score?
It's on fire. But there's a lot of podcasts that do the same thing, talk about cryptids, talk about spooky stuff, but where we want to focus, for lack of a better word, is the cryptids you may not hear a whole lot about.
Yeah, the ghosts who like to live next door.
Yeah, we both live in Ohio, which is the spookiest state. I'm just going to say it.
Kentucky.
You think so?
I think Kentucky's a little spookier. Ohio's a close second, though.
I'll agree, because Kentucky's on, the Appalachian Trail thing.
There's some weird shit in Kentucky.
I'll agree with that. But Ohio's up there in spook factor. And we're just going to use this show to highlight and talk about our either favorite, the hauntings that really don't get Amityville level, or the cryptids that aren't Bigfoot famous.
Yeah, the kind of cryptid that you'd see down at the farmer's market.
Yeah,
just your local little cryptid. Everyone's got one.
Maybe. And the craziest thing is, we were doing research before, for this podcast, a little fun research before we writing anything down to talk about. Mm-hmm. And we did find that there were a lot of one-shot small cryptids everywhere all over the U.S.
One guy saw a weird hedgehog and he's like, I'm telling everyone now.
I saw a frog walk on 2 legs, and I'm going to talk about it.
But yeah, so in general, the format of the show will be one of us tells a story to the other. But for this first episode, Zeerwith episode, we just kind of wanted to talk about our background and our relationship to the good old fuzzy boys who live out in your woods.
Yeah, where did our horror monster origins sprout? Like, where did we start getting into this stuff? And I've got a couple of TV shows that I could talk about, and I know you mentioned some books that you used to do. I used to do books too.
I'm gonna delve into the misty pasts of my brain, my memory.
Because, like, well, we're all like, I was already talking about books. I don't know about you, but when you had book fairs when you were like in school, like
that's how I got all of my Animorph books.
God, I remember Animorphs. Oh, I remember Animorphs.
It still scars me to this day.
There was a show. Wasn't there a show?
The show was so bad.
I never watched the show.
It was maybe like after we're done recording, we will watch an episode of Animorphs.
Oh man, it's been forever, but I'd be down. But at the book fair, when I was a kid, my mom would give me a little money, like go buy a book, like encouraging her young son to read. And instead of buying books, like instead of buying Harry Potter had just come out at this time. Hashtag fuck J.K. Rowling.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This is a strongly anti-J.K. Rowling podcast.
Yeah. And so, but the Harry Potter had just come out at this time, so you would think maybe a young nerdy kid would be like, immediately let's pick up Harry Potter. No. I went straight for any book that was about monsters, like werewolves, vampires, aliens, anything that like would either teach me about those things or teach me how to kill them.
You gotta know how to defend yourself. You never know when Frogman is coming for you. So.
I wish that I've found a book that had covered that, because no book on Frogman when I was a kid. Like, he was not in any of the cryptid books that I bought when I was little.
So for me in books, it was, I want to say, I could not tell you like a particular title or book series that I was reading, but just imagine you're in like the 4th grade and you go inside your school library and there's the one dusty bookshelf kind of like towards the back of the school library, mind you.
Yeah. And
it's the one shelf that's got like cryptids, vampires, witchcraft, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you exactly when I was getting into cryptids or what caused me to, but I do have this distinct memory of like going into my library and getting those books. Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of those books like on hand at my library as a kid, like at my school library. But book fairs, I remember this one that was like, it was like yay big. It was like as big as the laptop we're currently on, like wide.
Very visual cue, like
yeah, and on the front of it, werewolf like snarling at you on the front cover, and it's like monsters of the world or some shit. And I was like, that's mine.
Yeah, mine were like probably written in the 70s, hand-drawn illustrations of like...
This sounds so much cooler,
like though. Goatman and like Kelly Hopkinsville. They do like the little illustrations of that.
Yeah. That's shit I wish I found.
I want to go, if I had the time today, I was planning to go to the library and see if I could hunt down some of those books, so I could just have something, but...
That's like the kind of Spiderwick Chronicle thing that I wanted to stumble upon as a kid.
The arcane lore of the 70s.
Because I was convinced as a kid that I could hunt these things. And I had a very big, like, complex of I'm gonna hunt these monsters and save people. Like I thought monster hunters were so cool.
I mean, they are.
They are. And then you watch, like... I love this show because it's so ridiculous. But then you watch, like, Mountain Monsters and you're like, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, so there were... I remember, like, devouring every book I could on cryptids and aliens. And then eventually I got to the point where I was watching... And once again, I couldn't really tell you the name of these documentaries, but there were like these documentaries made for kids. I'd get them on VHS from
that sounds so awesome.
My local library.
Yeah.
And they would be covering things like, of course, like the classics like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But you'd get like, I'm going to mispronounce this, Makole Mimbe?
Oh, and I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to try to pronounce it either.
The dinosaur, like in the middle of, I want to say it was the Congo.
Yeah. I've heard about that one.
Champ.
The sea monster.
Yeah.
And
like all those kind of people. And I was a firm believer, to the point where when I was in Boy Scouts, they would make fun of me for being like, we're going out on this camping trip and I'm going to catch Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Or at least run away from Bigfoot.
If it's any consolation, I wasn't into the Boy Scouts I wasn't a scout at all. But like if I was, and like you would like confide in me like, yo, I'm gonna find Bigfoot or we have to watch out for Bigfoot. Like as a child, I'd have been right there with you. Like, you believe in Bigfoot too?
We're hunting Bigfoot together.
Like we're on Bigfoot tonight. Like for me, I did not have any of those documentaries from libraries, but what I did have like in my, like I want to say like 11 into preteen into like early teen years, there were like a couple shows that I used to watch. And on one of them, I took notes because I rewatched them on the other day because that was the only professional thing I did for this podcast.
The future episodes will be more professional.
They will. This is very much to get us used to like talking in this format, kind of getting a feel for how we want to have this, what vibe we want to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like the big show that I even to this day will try to rewatch, especially during Halloween time, because that's when it was everywhere, was a show on it started on ABC Family, and the show was called Scariest Places on Earth.
Okay, yeah, I remember. I don't think I watched that one a lot, but I remember that one.
It was on... They would do marathons of this show on ABC Family, especially during Halloween. They had that 13 Nights of Halloween on ABC Family. I think now the channel is called Freeform.
Yeah, it changed. It got weird.
It got
was
really
already weird, but
it was already weird. But like, it used to be called ABC Family, and they did that 13 Nights of Halloween. And when they weren't showing movies, they would just marathon this show during it, and it was so early 2000s. It's hilarious. Like they do the quick up close-ups of cuts, you know what I mean? Like when there's a host, it's hosted by Linda Blair, and when she's talking, they do that like early 2000s cut to a close-up, and it's like, a weird filter.
Like Linda Blair, the Exorcist girl?
Yes. It's hosted by her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's hosted by her. And a lot of the times, their main thing would be to like talk about local legends. They did like, the one I remember very prominently was the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah.
They would talk about that.
Fun fact. You know Borden milk with the cow?
Yes.
That's the same Bordens.
No fucking way.
Lizzie Borden is related to those Bordens.
No fucking way. That's weird. Oh my god.
Daisy, that cow.
Yeah.
Is canonically married to Elmer the Bull, who's on the Elmer glue bottles.
No, really? There's this whole like white liquid lore that I didn't know.
Oh, I am not a fan of white liquid lore.
I immediately regretted it.
Great,
right after
like
I said
80s hair metal band name though.
White liquid lore.
Oh yeah!
Oh yeah! That White Liquid Lore is my White Snake cover band.
Okay, so
but Scariest Places on Earth. They had two main formats. I should say they have two main styles of format. The first one, which I'm a bigger fan of, was them just talking about those things, like the Lizzie Borden house, the Bunnyman Bridge, talking about that kind of stuff and interviewing people from those hometowns. Mm-hmm. There other more, I would say, weirder format looking back on it is the episode that I watched yesterday is where they take these middle to middle upper class suburban, mostly white families mm-hmm. and just drop them off with cameras strapped to them at supposedly incredibly haunted places.
That's my fetish.
Like, these families who are either full of skeptics or believers sprinkled out, and mm-hmm. this is like a main family. It's like a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, mm-hmm. and they're just like, in this episode they went to Magnolia Lane Plantation, mm-hmm. which is a very haunted plantation in New Orleans, mm-hmm. and they're also just like very Christian. Also, they love to get Christian families.
Oh yeah,
they
ABC
love to get
Family
Christian
had
families.
A weird Christian theme.
Yeah, an underlying Christian theme. But in this show, in this episode especially, they would talk about voodoo mm-hmm. all the time, which I have very much, of course, high respect for the religion and high respect for any on all religions. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think both of us are polytheist almost. I know I am.
I'm weird.
You're weird? Okay, that's fair.
My religion is ghosts.
That's fair. That's all good. But like, for a very undertoned Christian channel, mm-hmm. they only really showed like the spooky voodoo parts. Mm-hmm. When voodoo, I don't know a lot about it, so I can't really speak on it. But like any religion, it's going to be, when it's put through that lens, it's just like ooky spooky. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all they're going to show. Mm-hmm. And so they drop this family off at this haunted place. And besides Linda Blair, the other prominent guy in this show is this Irish writer. Mm-hmm. Like, thick accent, Irish writer named Alan Robson. Mm-hmm. And he is like their storyteller guy. Mm-hmm. Like, whenever they talk about a place, he'll be on camera or he'll be the voiceover and it'll be like, Magnolia Lane Plantation. You do not want to go there. Like, it's a dark place and it's evil. Like, and he does that with all these places.
I mean, they're doing the aesthetic. They're going for a very 100%. Particular aesthetic. So.
The family sees him, and when they get there, he's like, "My name's Alan Robinson. I don't want to know your names."
But he's not he's just some dude. He's actually he's just from like Boston, probably. He's like I can't do a Boston. I was gonna try and do a Boston accent.
I looked him up. He actually is still alive. Mm-hmm. He's in his 60s, and he hosts one of Ireland's most popular late night AM radio shows called Night Owls.
Honestly, I'd listen to it.
Yeah, right? And I'm like, okay, he's an author. What? I would laugh my ass off if he had written no spooky books whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But it turns out he wrote like at least 3 books on ghosts.
Yeah.
Like, so he had merits. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they just drop the families off and they're like, you're going to do this task and explore this haunted house. Mm-hmm. No equipment, like besides cameras like strapped to them, like Blair Witch Project style.
Pre-GoPro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much pre-GoPro. They're carrying around at least another human being on them because it's like the early 2000s and mm-hmm. cameras.
And everybody carried around extra human beings.
Yes.
For our Zoomer listeners, that's what it was like in Y2K fashion is just pick up your best friend and walk around with them.
Yes.
Like they're a backpack now.
Yes, they're your backpack. It was a thing. But yeah, this episode actually in every episode when it involved a family, they just split them up. They're like, they put bags over their heads. Yes, they're already at the plantation.
And the thing is, the family didn't sign up for this. They were just kidding.
Yeah, that's the spoiler. But they do sign up for it, but they don't tell them where they're going. They're like, basically it's like, do you want to go to a spooky place? And they're like, sure. Where is it? You'll find out. And then they find out it's in New Orleans when they get to New Orleans.
See, I want to reboot this, but with just kidnapping rich people.
Yes.
And putting them in haunted, guess what, Bezos? You're going to Alcatraz.
Guess what, Jeff Bezos? You're going to the East Wing in Alcatraz. Spaceship out of there. They split the family up, put bags over their heads, split them up, and then find each other. Mm-hmm. And they're one girl is in the old slave quarters, one girl is in the basement, one person's in the woods near these really creepy scarecrows that they just made. Mm-hmm.
I just want to do. I want to just do this to people. This is my villain origin story.
It's insane. And the only other thing that I have besides them doing the urban legends, this is also where I first heard about the French catacombs. That's how I first heard about the French catacombs.
Oh yeah.
Which is still creepy to this day, mm-hmm. honestly.
I've not gone to the catacombs myself. I had a friend who went, and I've got a lot of pictures. She sent me a lot of pictures when she went.
Did you hear about, in the catacombs, did you hear about that camera they found mm-hmm. in it, where a guy got lost exploring the catacombs? And the last footage of it is him obviously running from something or in a panic because he can't find his way out. And this camera, he drops the camera and he just runs off without it. Mm-hmm. And they have never, I don't know if they might have found his body by now. It's 2022. But that, at the time of the episode of the show, mm-hmm. in 2015, 2000 something, no, not 2015, 2006, they had never found this guy's body, and the camera was just left on until the battery died.
That's horrifying.
And it was one of the scariest things that still creeps me out to this day. Mm-hmm. The other one is the Bunny Man Bridge. Still freaks me the fuck out today. Mm-hmm. About this supposed psycho guy from a psych ward, surviving in the woods off of bunny carcasses, and he lives under this bridge in some state.
Some state.
I forget what state it was.
Delaware.
It's probably Delaware.
It sounds like a Delaware thing. I don't know.
Was there another? So that was me rambling about Scariest Place on Earth. Before I go on to my other show that's arguably funnier, was there something was there anything in your other monster origins to trade it off?
I watched a lot. I didn't watch a ton of the haunted places as much when I was a kid, because I steered away from ghosts. Ghosts scared me well into my teenage years.
I agree.
Straight up terrified of ghosts. And I had the classic my house was supposedly haunted when I was a kid, and my mom was like, oh yeah, because we lived in the house that the guy who built all of the houses in the neighborhood, we lived in his house.
Oh.
His name was Mr. Plackey. And Mrs. Plackey died in, we think, the living room.
Oh.
And so whenever something would just fall off a wardrobe, my mom would be like, oh, hi, Mrs. Plackey.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. And so I lived in constant fear of my house.
Oh, that's not fun at all.
And there were a couple of experiences which probably could be explained by my mom loading up our first PC with .wav files of Monty Python sketches. But I remember being 10 or 12, and I'm trying to take a nap on the couch, and all of a sudden I hear something yell, "Go away!" And I run out of my house. I run out the front door.
God.
I in hindsight, oh yeah, that was probably something because my mom made every single function on the computer have a sound.
Yeah.
And so it was probably a Monty Python sketch.
But
it was still
that's scary though.
I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah, I would too.
And so yeah, I didn't mess with ghosts for a very long time. So I mostly focused on cryptids and aliens. I watched a lot of course, a lot of the history, not Ancient Aliens stuff. This was before that.
Ancient Aliens.
But the one that kind of always stuck in my brain was Destination Truth.
I adore that show.
Which was for those of you who haven't watched it, it's if you remember like Jeff Corwin Experience or those like destination wildlife shows.
Yep.
Same thing, but he's trying to find like leprechauns.
There was Josh Gates, first of all, is the host. That's the host for those of you who haven't watched it. Josh Gates was the name of the host. He actually, isn't he doing a new show where he's trying to find artifacts, right?
Yeah, that was like a second thing. That was
But in Destination Truth, for some reason, this felt so legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, too, like, it felt like he was taking these things, like, as serious as we were.
Mm-hmm.
Like, while we're watching it. And we're like, oh, he is pulling out modern equipment. Like, he wants to find these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, what's the word I'm looking for? Gratifying, or you felt seen.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
Yeah, well, it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it was like one of these, oh yeah, I'm not crazy for believing these things.
Yeah.
Or for being interested in these things. Other people find it too, and other people take it seriously.
Yeah. Validated, that's the word.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, because when he went, like, his footprint, I think, that he found of, like, the Yeti is still on display at Disney World's Expedition Everest ride.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, when you go through the queue of Expedition Everest, there's like a mini, as you're going through the line, there's a mini Yeti museum. Mm-hmm. Like an Inuit artifact museum. Mm-hmm. And you see the plaster cast of the footprint that Josh Gates, the actual one that he took, and with his picture next to it. Mm-hmm. So seeing that a couple years after the show had went off the air was just really cool to be like, oh yeah, I watched that episode when he found this. Mm-hmm. And it was another way for me to feel like, oh, I feel validated in believing in these things. Mm-hmm. And he did so many things, and some of the stuff I was like, oh, he got it. Like, he found it.
Yeah. Well, and I think like the validation thing, it kind of like looking back is like really important, because when I kept believing, I kept being very interested in this stuff well into like my early 20s. And that's like when I started getting kind of deeper into the weirdness of like reading the Mothman prophecies, which like we want to do smaller cryptids and stuff like that, but I think doing some of the side characters in the Mothman story would be interesting, because there's so much more to that story than what people realize. And that's kind of like it, and that was like kind of peak for me. And then I went and got a master's degree in philosophy, where believing in anything was frowned upon. And so I kind of adopted that persona, but it always kind of sucked.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I grew up, like, in addition to reading about the cryptids and the aliens, I also got, like, really big into witchcraft when I was a kid. And I was, like, once again, like, finding books in my school library that were, like, had spells in them, and I tried to do them. I probably didn't work.
Yeah.
But, like, that still kind of informed my spirituality growing up, and then I kind of let it go away. And then only out of getting academia did I kind of, like, come back to everything and be like, oh, yeah, this stuff's important to me. This stuff's interesting. I don't need to feel ashamed if I believe in weirdness.
Yeah. I didn't... I would say there was a point where I did, like, fall out of the scene, too. Mm-hmm. Like, it happened with that in, like, high school for me. Mm-hmm. Like, because I fell out of not only the weirdness, like the weird side of the world, like that side, but I also fell out of comics because I didn't want to get made fun of anymore. I didn't want to get bullied. But like after getting into college, funny, that's also where we met. But I realized that I can like that stuff, and there's other people that like that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was incredibly refreshing. So getting, and then I guess I got older, I wasn't so turned off by horror anymore. So not only I got back into like ghosts and monsters and cryptids, I got into horror movies, and now that's like, I love horror movies. But they were definitely like shows like Scariest Places or any other Halloween episode of a cartoon, those were definitely like the gateway drugs.
Oh yeah,
like into all that stuff. Because my parents, they let me watch that kind of spooky stuff. They did. It's like if you can handle it, watch it. Like that was kind of their whole attitude.
My mom had a really weird approach to it. Like, I was raised most by my mother. I was not into horror as a child. I was very self-censoring and very sensitive to that kind of stuff.
I was too. So you know what I mean.
But I also lived with the mom who's like, oh yeah, the house is haunted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're interested in witchcraft. Cool, here's some books.
Yeah.
You want to do mushrooms for spiritual reasons? I might have some still.
Definitely the opposite of mine. I wasn't like, my family wasn't heavy Christian, but like they were Christian, but my dad came from a Catholic family, like a heavy Catholic.
Yeah.
And when he didn't raise us to go to church, like we never went to church unless someone passed away. But they were all like, hey, God's a thing. If you get scared, this is the Bible. If you want to read it, that's fine. If you don't want to read it.
Hey, God's a thing on a that's
hey, God's a thing.
It's also like the most low energy youth pastor.
It was super low energy because I was like, yeah, God's a thing. He's the reason you're here. Like that was the extent of like how big religion was in my house. Like God exists. We're cool with him. You can be cool with him if you want. But angels are good. Demons are bad. Like that's what it is. That's how the world works. And I was like, okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
And now I'm over here talking to not only God, but like all other gods. But the second show,
my tiny Hermanubis.
Oh yeah.
I've got a tiny Hermanubis statue in my office where we're recording.
Oh, nice.
He's so small. He's right
there. That reminds me, like another weird cryptid thing is like dog people.
Yeah, the dog people. There's so much, and I'm very excited to get into the weird stuff.
Same.
We're the kind of the overall plan.
Yeah, the overall plan.
We're gonna. I think we're gonna start in Ohio and start with some of our local places because we've got. There's a handful of like weird local cryptids here in Ohio.
There is, surprisingly, to even us.
And then there's a lot of ghosts.
Yeah.
I want to go through some like the Dayton region ghosts, or when I went to OU, Ohio University, which is supposed to be one of the most haunted like campuses in America.
Like as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I didn't experience anything out there, but I did have a friend who went to, what was that? The Ridges, that used to be an asylum. And he had some weird stuff go on, so we might even be able to get him on.
That'd be cool. Was it the college that we met, St. Clair? Isn't there like a building at St. Clair that's haunted?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of buildings because there was the Blair Hall, the theater.
That's the one I know of.
There's another building where, so here in Dayton. Oh no! I gave away my location.
Oh God!
Oh no! The FBI. Dayton back in 1913 had a huge flood. And one of the buildings is basically built on top of where they put bodies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I want to say there was another one that was where like the gallows was, but I can't remember that for sure. But yeah, I remember.
Oof.
I remember Blair Hall is supposed to have, but then again, every theater has a ghost, I think.
I feel like every theater has a ghost. I think it's
like if a theater doesn't have a ghost, one will be provided for them.
Like,
you go on eBay, you get yourself a haunted doll, work it into your production of Annie.
Yep, comes in the mail.
Yeah.
With samples of Tide when you move into the neighborhood. That's an old reference. They don't do that anymore. That's an
in
old
this economy,
reference.
Free detergent?
Yeah. God, I think I heard that joke from Wayne's World. I think he said it in Wayne's World, but it's something that I've always used. But yeah, because even Sorg Opera House in Middletown is haunted, supposedly. And I even have a friend who I work with now who used to work at the Sorg Opera House, and he said he's got stories.
Yeah.
He's got some stories that he could tell.
We're going to tell stories to each other.
Yeah.
And then hopefully maybe get some people who want to come on and talk. Or if you have a story and you want to send it to us via an email.
Yeah.
Or a regular mail. Or a carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
Pony Express, if you could get a pony to come to my house.
Morse code.
Morse code.
We could get one.
Stand cryptically outside my window and whisper to me. And if you can do that, considering I live on a second floor, I might throw things at you, but I'll be impressed.
If you'll throw back the message when he throw things at you, that would be helpful too. Mm-hmm. If he threw a rock at you, but you're like, but you throw another rock, but it has a note attached to it that says, talk about this, that would be appreciated.
Talk about my ghost boyfriend.
Yeah, my ghost boyfriend.
Harold.
My ghost boyfriend.
We met on Only Fish.
I was trying to think of something spooky.
Only Fish.
To call Tinder.
The world's only fish porn site.
I thought it was just a place for fishermen to meet. Only Fish.
Only Fish. You wanna see a flounder do a striptease? Come to Only Fish.
Only Fish. Ugh.
Anyways. So
this
was episode 0.
This was episode 0 of Our Haunted Backyard.
Your haunted backyard too.
Your haunted backyard too. You can come into our haunted backyard.
We'll have a haunted barbecue.
And everybody's invited.
I'll make burgers.
Mm-hmm. I will bring drinks. Because I'm not a great cook.
Lots of booze.
Hey! Lots of booze.
It's the jokes.
It's the jokes that keep them coming back. But yeah, if this is ever released, this will probably be like a Patreon exclusive. Mm-hmm. When eventually maybe we have a Patreon.
Maybe we'll surprise ourselves and this will be good enough to actually put on the internet as a whole. But we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. But thank you all for listening. If social medias that we have, which would be like Twitter and Instagram, if those are up and we decide to post this, they may not be up yet, but they will be up soon.
They will probably be up before the episode.
So feel free to give that a follow. And thank you for listening. If you did listen, because this is out there on the ether.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. This has been Our Haunted Backyard.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Stay nice.
Stay nice. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.